Building a better Bay Area. Moving forward, finding solutions. This is ABC 7 News.
Hi there, I'm Kristen Z. You're watching Getting Answers live on ABC 7. We always ask experts your questions every day at 3 to get answers for you in real time. Today, Moderna asked the FDA to authorize its vaccine for kids under 6. What's the dosage? How effective is it? And when will it be approved? Dr. Peter Chin-Hong will join us with the latest on COVID news. Also, assaults are way up on Muni, even though ridership is down. As part of building a better Bay Area, our media partner, the San Francisco Standard, will be here to share its investigative report. But first, pull your masks back out. You're going to need them on BART. Today, the BART board voted to reinstate its mask mandate, effective immediately. And joining us now to discuss the policy is BART's board vice president, Janice Lee. Janice, thank you so much for joining us today. I know this was big news. Just want to confirm, right, that this is effective immediately, right? And when does it last?
Yes, that's correct, Kristen.
Okay.
Yeah, that's correct, Kristen. Thank you. So the BART board passed unanimously an extension of the mask mandate through a change of our customer code of conduct. It is temporary. So right now the date is set to go through July 18th, about a couple months.
Okay. Look, people are pretty divided on mask mandates right now, yet this board vote was unanimous, I think. Are you surprised by that?
I have to say I am a little bit surprised because I know, we were watching what the State Department of Public Health was doing and what that ripple effect with all these different public transit agencies across the state would be. But I would say that first, BART isn't the first agency to move forward with this. LA Metro and the LA County Department of Public Health has continued their mask mandate on public transit. But BART is definitely taking a leadership role here in the Bay Area, and I'm really proud of that. And so whether I'm surprised or not, I'm glad that this is the direction we are moving forward in.
Right. BART is first here in the Bay Area. We'll see if other transit agencies join you. But what was the reason you voted yes? Why did you think it was necessary?
Yeah, that's right. So President Rebecca Saltzman, Director Bevan Dufty, and I put forward this action for the board today. And the reason is, we were not prepared and we were not expecting the federal judge out of Florida to make the ruling that was made. And there was no planning that we could have expected to be able to respond to that ruling. And the ripple effects were really significant at a time that we are seeing an increase of cases. Now, science is on all different things. We could spend, hours and hours reading news articles, watching, news pieces and looking into the science of this. But first, I will say that this is really about making our system safe, convenient, welcoming for all riders. And we heard overwhelmingly from people with disabilities and seniors today that they would not ride BART if there was no mask mandate. So we know that keeping a mask mandate is going to be more welcoming for a broader number of riders. Second, we're still trying to see what the swell or the surge of cases means for our region. And the best case scenario here is we're on the right side, science. The worst case scenario truly is, we are extending temporarily a mask mandate. It might be, something that people don't love doing. But this is a temporary measure that's going to keep all of us safe and keep BART welcome for more riders.
Okay. I actually think I heard you say that many people expressed that they didn't want to ride BART without a mask mandate. I was wondering about whether ridership was a factor. I know you're trying to build it back up after the pandemic really caused those ridership levels to plunge. And there are some who are looking at this saying, oh, this is a bad move by BART if they want customers because people are going to not want to take it. But you actually think it's the other way.
Yeah, the data shows it. So even before the mask mandate and the federal judge ruling occurred, a few weeks ago, every single day we were seeing increased ridership at BART. And this was during the mask mandate that was across the country, across the state, and for BART. So we know that it is in no way the mask mandate that is holding people from riding BART. And we're also seeing, even, despite the federal ruling and despite the change that occurred for a couple of weeks, we were still seeing increased ridership, and we're actually seeing really good mask compliance for a lot of the riders. So I think, you know, our region gets it and our riders get it, and people are coming back to BART in droves. And I'm thrilled because BART is necessary to keep the region moving.
So during those 2 brief weeks when it was optional, you did not see a dip. You saw an increase in ridership, or did you?
Yeah,
Or did you see a dip?
significant increase. No,
Okay.
a significant increase. So BART ridership is growing every day, mask mandate or otherwise. And so we know it's not the mandate that's affecting our ridership.
And it's back to what percentage compared to
We
pre-pandemic?
actually, yeah, we broke records yesterday at 37%. I think that's in part due to the Giants and A's game, and go Warriors, certainly because of the Warriors game last night.
Right, that definitely helps. Real quickly, because I want to get back to the specifics with regard to where you need to mask on BART. BART is not about to fall off a fiscal cliff. There were some big worries about that, of course, the last 2 years. Are you looking at service cuts or layoffs or anything this year?
Absolutely not. And that's not a direction I would support at all. We actually just received a budget presentation today. And thanks to our tireless federal advocacy and our great champions that we have in DC, BART received $280 million in additional federal assistance out of ARP. And this is not only allowing us to continue our service levels, which is at this point basically 100% pre-pandemic service. We're actually about to increase our weekend service even further with our next budget, which is great because we know that those weekend BART riders, you know, our weekend ridership is actually recovering at a faster rate. We know that so many people are really relying on taking BART on Saturdays and Sundays.
That makes sense, right? Because people are still kind of hybrid or work from home, but they want to get out on weekends. They want to go to the, Golden Gate Park, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, real quickly, what are the areas on the BART system where you're enforcing that mask mandate? Where do people have to be? Platform, train, where?
So how it's going to work is within the paid areas. So once you pass our fare gates and you pay to get into our system, you have to have a face covering. If you do not, don't worry. We're going to have plenty of BART staff available, whether that's station agents, our BART ambassadors, our police officers. They will all have masks available for our riders. And certainly we totally understand for people with disabilities or medical conditions that makes it not possible or healthy for them to wear masks. There are exemptions for those folks, as well as our riders under the age of 2.
So it will be enforced, it sounds like?
So our plans for enforcement is not going to look any different than what it did before the federal ruling, which is that we're really focused on compliance through education and providing people masks. We actually got an update from the BART police chief today that those efforts are extremely successful and led to high levels of compliance, and that throughout the entire pandemic with a mask mandate in place, they only issued a total of 7 citations. These are civil citations around the mask mandate. So what we see and what we know is that education, signage, passing out masks actually works. And I am absolutely confident that that will continue to be the case with this new board action today.
All right, Janice Lee, BART's board vice president, discussing the reinstatement of the mask mandate at least through July 18th. Thank you so much for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Coming up next, 18 million more Americans could soon be eligible to get the COVID vaccine. UCSF infectious disease specialist Dr. Peter Chin-Hong will be joining us live, so stick around. All right, be right back. to get the COVID-19 vaccine, but that could soon change. Today, vaccine maker Moderna requested emergency use authorization for children under 6. That would be 18 million people. And joining us now is UCSF infectious disease specialist, Dr. Peter Chin-Hong. Dr. Chin-Hong, always great to see you. Thanks for joining us.
My pleasure, Kristen. Thanks for having me on.
All right, so yeah, what's the latest form, dosage, if you will, of this Moderna vaccine for kids under 6 that is just asked for approval for?
Yeah, so it's looking at 1/4 of the dose of the adults, so 25 micrograms instead of 100. And if you want to compare it to Pfizer, when Pfizer originally studied its 2-dose series, it was 1/10 or 10% of the adult dose, so 10 micrograms. 10 micrograms, 3 micrograms instead of 30 micrograms. So a big qualitative difference. So that's why Pfizer has to study 3 shots now, and Moderna is sticking to 2 for the time being.
Okay, and it's 2 shots over the course of what? Is it a 3-week wait in between, 4 weeks, greater, what?
4 weeks.
4 weeks,
so,
okay.
weeks for Moderna. And that is what is studied.
Okay. Now let's look at efficacy against infection. I see it was 51% among children younger than 2 and 37% among kids 2 to 5. That doesn't sound great, does it?
Yeah, but if you realize, Kristen, it is comparable to a lot of other vaccines and how they performed in Omicron. And what's not reported because the sample size wasn't big enough is the impact of serious disease, hospitalization, and death, which was actually pretty big. If we change our guideposts for how we evaluate it, it's going to look very, very comparable to what we typically take as normal vaccines. Just that Omicron, as you know, a lot of people got breakthrough infections with Omicron. And the other issue with the Moderna shot is that the antibody levels, when you compare it to 18 to 25-year-olds, are pretty much the same with 1/4 of the dose in that under 6 age group.
Okay. Hey, how quickly do you expect the FDA to move on this?
Well, it all depends. You know, this is all veiled and nobody really knows what the truth is. But there are 2 choices. One is, again, Pfizer was an early front runner, but then again, they have to go back to the drawing board, give a 3rd shot. So they're saying we can give the data hopefully this month. Submitted today. I mean, Moderna today, as you said. So the FDA can say, we're going to look at Moderna first, maybe approve that, or as some people are predicting, wait for Pfizer to release their data, then review Moderna and Pfizer at the same time. And in that case, it may be June.
Look, what would you do? Do you think, and I heard, you know, part of it was they don't want confusion if both were green lighted at the same time. But as a parent, now my kids are older and eligible now, but if I had a kid under 5, I'd be thinking, just put one out. Like whichever one is ready to go and you're satisfied, just put that out. Why wait?
Yes, it's an emergency. We're still in a pandemic. We're not in an endemic. I agree with you, Kristen. You know, if I had a under 6-year-old, I'd want to have that vaccine ASAP. But again, you know, I know it's a private institution. I just hope that they would probably approve them in sequence because, again, the data isn't going to change for Moderna.
Yeah. Okay. If both are approved, which one would you recommend at this point between the 2?
Say because we haven't seen the updated Pfizer data yet, but the Moderna data looks extremely comparable to the adults in terms of efficacy. What we haven't talked about yet is safety, and in that case, even better reactions that adults have. So fewer fevers than other typical conditions that kids get. No myocarditis. Again, we wouldn't expect it in this age group anyway, because myocarditis tracks with testosterone and puberty. So that's why we see it in that young adult, older teen male population.
Okay. Do you think boosters will be necessary for the youngest kids as well?
Yes. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if a booster is necessary. Again, I'm going to do a great job of reminding the immune system by just giving an interval of 3 or 4 weeks. It seems that the immune system works best when you do a 1-2 punch. you wait a few months, and then you remind the immune system again. After all, that's the formula we many childhood vaccines and many adult vaccines too, like hepatitis B. So I think over time, I would imagine that this will end up being a freeze. Of course, in the beginning, that initial 2-dose will be very safe and equally effective as what we take for granted in adults.
Okay, let's look at the bigger picture now, Dr. Chin Hong. How are COVID case and hospitalization numbers trending right now?
Well, right now we are seeing a diametrically opposite pattern. So increasing cases nationally, 50%, more in many places on the East Coast, Puerto Rico, tickling up in California, 40% or above, but decrease in death, decrease in hospitalizations, maybe a slight uptick in some areas, but nothing to write home about. And I know people are saying, we didn't wait 2 weeks yet, but remember, cases have been trickling up for some time now, and there's, knock on wood, hasn't been a dent in the hospitalization. Very cautiously optimistic that things will remain okay.
It's just interesting, you know, how people look at it, because I know right now some people are going, look at the hospitalization, you know, especially when you consider the true number of cases probably much greater than even what's reported. That especially speaks well of not a lot of severe cases, right? Because the percentage of severe cases going down. But then other people are looking at, oh my gosh, I know so many people with COVID right now, and, you know, even if they just have like slight fevers and, you know, they feel like they've been beaten up, it's terrible, long COVID, it's all possible. So I don't know, should I put on my rose-colored lenses or my super dark, scary lenses? What is it?
The answer to the multiple choice question is all of the above, unfortunately. So what do I mean by that? I mean that don't be afraid of COVID, but respect it. I don't want to get COVID. I'm going to keep my mask on in crowded indoor areas. I'm keeping my mask on in public transit and on the plane for sure, because I don't want to be taken out of the workforce. Do I that at the hospital as a boosted person? No. Do I worry that I'm going to get long COVID? Much less risk of as a vaccinated. Because one of the big predictors for long COVID is whether or not you can get virus in the bloodstream or find it. And I know that those antibodies and T cells and B cells are going to pounce on the virus soon so that it doesn't have that chance. No case for people to get Paxlovid if you are eligible, because that will also decrease the amount of virus in your blood potentially, and also protect against long COVID, although not yet proven.
Okay, good to know. All right, so in the wake of everything, as we look at the big picture right now, do you think mask mandates like the one BART brought back today should be making a comeback?
I think in specific locations, but not as a generalized mask mandate. And it all depends on the goals. And as long as there's an exit plan or an exit strategy, I think for a short time, it's okay. I think in the hospital, it makes sense. Everybody on we're continuing to still wear masks. I'm still walking around with my mask. There's a sign in the elevator now for us to even think about upgrading our masks in the hospital to KN95 or for public transit. The different, you want to protect community because everyone can get a good mask. And you're getting all people from all walks of life in that public transit setting.
Yeah.
Similar to hospital. So it depends on the goal. Schools might be different, but you're not going to see it probably come back as a general recommendation.
Okay. We have time for just one quick question here, but I want to get this in because I appreciate you guys asking. Chantel wants to know, when in the fall will the COVID vaccine be available that may cover more variants?
Yeah, so Moderna is now looking at maybe a hybrid Omicron plus regular variant. They're also looking at different combinations. They seem to recently, so we're not really sure exactly when, and it would be recommended versus just getting the rest of the population a booster or a second booster. Be the discussion. I think by winter time they would have combined a flu and COVID shot together. So that's kind of where we go.
Okay, let's see if you can do this in 10 seconds. Sally wants to know, is it true that young teenage athletes should be checked for heart conditions after they have the COVID vaccine?
No, I do not check for, I wouldn't recommend checking for heart conditions, but only getting medical attention if there's chest pain, shortness of breath, anything like that. But don't go looking for it by guessing.
All right, Dr. Peter Chen Hong, thank you so much. Great information. Appreciate your time.
Thanks so much, Chris.
Coming up next, the number of assaults happening on Muni is rising. And this is happening when ridership is actually down. So why is it happening? Annie Gauss from our media partner, the San Francisco Standard, will be joining us next. All right, be right back, folks. Don't go away.
Can't hear anything. Yep. Yes, I can hear you now.
Reducing crime is an important part of building a better Bay Area. Overall, crime on Muni is down when compared to last year. This sounds good, right? But if you look closely, you'll see assaults are on the rise. This is not unique to San Francisco, of course. Our media partners at the San Francisco Standard is doing a deep dive into how Muni is handling the problem. In fact, just moments ago, the Standard spoke with SFMTA about this. And joining us live to talk about what they've learned is news editor for the Standard, Annie Gauss. Annie, welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me.
All right, first, what's the upshot? What is the main headline of your story on assaults on Muni?
Yeah, so reports of assaults on Muni jumped considerably throughout the pandemic. SFMTA maintains a dashboard on their website, in the hopes of educating the public about how safe it is to ride Muni. And their public dashboard on this indicates that assaults spiked considerably between 2020 and 2021. It showed an increase of something like 74 to 186. There's some detail behind those numbers. There was a reporting change in August 2020 that included battery as well as aggravated assault. So there's some nuance to the data there, but reports of both aggravated assaults and battery assaults increased throughout the pandemic, even as ridership was diminished with riders avoiding Muni.
Got it. So they did put a couple of new things into that bucket that they consider assault. But even when you take those out and account for those, assaults are still running higher. So any idea why? Like, are there motives that they've looked at? And who's being attacked? Like, is it drivers? Is it passengers?
Yeah, so they didn't have a breakdown of drivers versus passengers, but I did speak to SFMTA Director Jeff Tumlin, who offered some thoughts about it. And he said that there are a couple of factors that may be at play in this kind of uptick in rates of assault on Muni, even with the decreased ridership throughout the pandemic. One is that, he said that mask mandates may actually have an unintended consequence where they sort of rile up certain passengers who may be, more liable to engage in aberrant behavior because they're reacting against the masking mandate. And then the other factor is that, just as we're seeing sort of increased instability in people's behavior out in the world around us, they've been seeing the same thing on Muni, and unfortunately, that's had an impact on both drivers and passengers.
Can we talk about, this happening while ridership is down? And I wonder if there's some, if not causal, but a correlation. Like, is there a fear of being assaulted driving down ridership?
Yeah, I don't know about that specifically, but it certainly led to increased concerns. And, as you mentioned, this is something that we've seen nationwide as well, where people who do need to use public transit and are finding themselves sort of more alone on trains and buses that they used to be feel more vulnerable, even if, the actual number of certain types of incidents may have been unchanged, relative to the total number of passengers. Yeah. You still feel a bit more vulnerable when you're alone. Yeah.
I know we only have about 20 seconds, but real quickly, what are they doing about it?
Yeah, well, Muni says that they are asking for more money for more ambassadors who are, uniformed folks who stand aboard trains and sort of make sure that all is well. They're also educating drivers, on how to de-escalate situations and when to intervene and when to call police. And Tumlin also said that these types of crimes have very high prosecution rates or successive prosecution rates when they do go to court.
Annie,
because
we'll have to take the rest of this on Facebook Live, but you can check out more of the Standard's original reporting on ABC7news.com. Stick around and join us on Facebook Live for more. Okay, Annie, so let's talk about other types of crimes, right? I know you focused mostly on assaults in terms of this piece, but what about robbery, graffiti, and other types of crimes?
Yeah, so prior to the pandemic, larcenies were by far the biggest, that's simple theft, pickpocketing and things like that were by far the largest category of crime. Larcenies went way down. There are fewer people on trains or fewer opportunities to be victimized. So those went down, but it's important to note as well that overall ridership also drastically decreased. So, even though the incidents are going down, the rate of crimes has not necessarily decreased on Muni.
Got it. What about other Bay Area transit agencies? I don't know if you also looked at them in terms of what they're facing and what they're doing.
Yeah, well, BART, as you may know, has its own police force, and I believe that so they have kind of a different security protocol. Yeah. But in response to the tragic incident that we saw a few weeks ago in New York, where there was a mass shooting at a subway station in Brooklyn, I think they did decide to step up their own security measures, so they're taking some action there.
Okay. Annie Gauss, thank you so much for sharing your reporting. And again, I invite folks to check out the SF Standard. Always good stuff. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
All right. Be right back, folks. Thanks so much for joining us on this interactive show, Getting Answers. We'll be here every weekday at 3 on air and on live stream, answering your questions. World News Tonight with David Mira is next. Bye-bye.